in today's video, I have compiled some of my older videos into the ultimate draft busts and draft Hall of Famers of the top 10 picks from the early 2010s for you guys. And before it does start, I do have to say that most of the things in here were before some of the recent signings and trades have happened, like Stephon Gilmore going to the Vikings and some others. So just in case something is outdated, that is why. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and make sure as always to subscribe if you like the content. The top 10 of the 2012 draft truly had it all and went down as one of the best classes of the 2010s. From generational wide receiver prospects who ruined their careers with legal issues to superstar defensive legends who have a chance of becoming Hall of Famers one day, it's a perfect reminder of the risk and reward nature that comes with the draft. But what actually happened to the careers of the top 10 from this draft?
First pick in the 2012 NFL Draft, Andrew Luck, quarterback, Stanford.
Luck entered the league as one of the most exciting quarterback prospects the NFL had ever seen.
He absolutely has. What was Andrew Luck's billing coming out? That he was a surefire franchise quarterback. A lot of the scouts said he was the best quarterback they'd scouted since John Elway.
He quickly proved his worth by amassing 4,374 yards and 23 touchdowns in an impressive rookie season, which also featured 255 more yards on the ground and 5 rushing touchdowns. It was clear that the Colts had hit the jackpot, with Luck leading the team to the playoffs in his first 3 seasons, showcasing everything you want to see from a top quarterback. He had a strong arm, a smart footballing brain, and impressive athleticism for his size. Unfortunately though, all of this success was marred by a long list of injuries that he faced throughout his career. His various injuries included a lacerated kidney, torn abdomen muscles, and a persistent shoulder injury, which forced him to miss the entire 2017 season. In 2018 though, everything appeared to be back on track when a 4,593-yard, 39-touchdown season won him the NFL's Comeback Player of the Year award. However, in a shocking turn of events, that would happen to be his last season in the NFL. Luck abruptly announced his retirement 2 weeks before the start of the 2019 season.
But I am going to retire. This is not an easy decision. Honestly, it's the hardest decision of my life.
He cited the fact that he had been stuck in recurring rehab cycles, which had essentially prevented him from living the way he wanted to live and taking the joy out of the game. It was a complete shock to the footballing world, and not one that was received well by the fans. It was a what could have been career, with Luck finishing on 23,671 yards and 171 touchdowns through the air, in addition to 1,590 yards and 14 scores on the ground.
The Washington Redskins select Robert Griffin III, quarterback, Baylor.
Now with RG3, many people were very hyped to see him go in this draft class, but all that hype would ultimately be defined by the injuries that he faced throughout his career. Griffin burst onto the scene in his rookie season for Washington, winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year award thanks to his stunning dual threat skill set. As a passer, he posted 3,200 yards and 20 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions, but it was his ability as a rusher that made him stand out. He added 815 yards and 7 scores on the ground to make him one of the league's most dynamic weapons and earn him the prestigious Rookie of the Year award. And it was safe to say that the sky appeared to be the limit, but a devastating ACL tear in the 2012 season's playoffs proved to be his downfall. And I think the saddest part of all of this is that Griffin just had a long and just really devastating road ahead of him in rehab. But on top of this, it wasn't helped by the fact that really they rushed him back onto the field to get back out there and really never let him fully recover. And clearly not fully recovered, Griffin underperformed and was benched for Kirk Cousins later in the season. Sadly, the former Offensive Rookie of the Year never refound the form that made his rookie season so spectacular either. It was a dramatic fall from grace, with Griffin even somehow taking snaps at safety on scout team defense prior to the 2015 season, before eventually spending it as an inactive third-string quarterback. He then tried his luck at the Browns and Ravens, but more injuries and inconsistent play prevented him from ever establishing himself. He has now found much more success as a TV host and even a YouTuber too. Now at the third pick, we have Trent Richardson, who was all the rage in 2012, becoming the first non-quarterback taken in the draft. His selection by the Cleveland Browns at 3rd overall came with a lot of hype, and life in the NFL started to treat him very well at the beginning. As a rookie, Richardson posted 950 yards and 11 touchdowns, while also taking on 51 receptions for 367 yards and 1 more touchdown. The bruising back paired his size and physicality with shiftiness as a receiver to make him a versatile threat for Cleveland. There was one area of concern for Richardson though. He had only managed to post an average of 3.6 yards per carry, which is very underwhelming for a top 3 pick. And unfortunately, this trend continued in the start of his sophomore year, with Richardson just posting 105 yards at 3.4 yards per carry across his first 2 games. And in a shocking turn of events, this forced the Cleveland Browns to make a very dramatic trade that nobody expected, sending their former 3rd overall pick to the Indianapolis Colts.
But Trent Richardson has been traded to the Indianapolis Colts.
And as it turns out, the Cleveland Browns actually made a great trade by dumping Trent Richardson while he was still at such high stock value, before just watching Richardson's complete decline from a distance.
Trent Richardson is the worst running back of all time. All time. There's a freshman that goes to University High in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, named Michael Hollins, that I will take on my team right now in the NFL before I got Trent
I need
Richardson.
to tell him be nice now.
I can't believe they gave him $600,000 guaranteed, and they gave it to him to go away.
They did.
Can you imagine that?
Okay.
If somebody said, man, I'm gonna give you all this money just so you never
That's
run the ball.
not the first time that happened
So
to
you
me, though.
never run the ball for us.
Okay.
He barely averaged just 2.9 yards per carry for Indy, resulting in just 458 yards and 3 touchdowns. It was more of the same for the following year, forcing the Colts to cut ties with him after just his 3rd year in the league. That was that for Richardson in the NFL, failing to make another roster and in the end settling for a job in the Canadian Football League in 2017. And I mean, long story short, that is not what you are expecting or ever want from a 3rd overall selection. At 4th overall, we have Matt Kalil, who was selected by the Minnesota Vikings. Kalil was widely regarded as the best offensive tackle in the class, and while his career did get off to a good start, it was pretty much just a steady decline from the moment he was selected by the Vikings. As a rookie, he started in all 16 games, earning his first Pro Bowl selection as a replacement for Trent Williams. It was an excellent induction into the NFL for Kalil, who was a part of the impressive offensive line that helped Adrian Peterson reach 2,097 yards in his MVP season. Unfortunately though, that was pretty much as high as it got for Matt Kalil. He remained a regular feature on the offensive line for Minnesota, but he saw his sacks conceded totals increase from 7 across his first 2 seasons to a total of 12 in his 3rd. Not only that, but he also saw his penalty totals also go up, which meant that when he suffered a season-ending injury in 2016, he had improved enough to warrant another contract with the team that drafted him. He somehow did manage to get a 5-year deal with the Panthers, where he and his brother Ryan became the 3rd set of brothers to play on the same offensive line in the NFL. He started all 16 seasons in his first season with the Panthers in 2017, but more issues with his knee resulted in him missing all of the 2018 season and eventually being released in 2019. All in all though, this is just another career that was cut short because of injuries that he did sustain. Yes, he did underwhelm for being the 4th overall pick in this draft class, but for him to go on and play at least 82 games in the NFL does show that he did have some longevity in the NFL.
The Jacksonville Jaguars select Justin Blackmon.
Expectations for Blackmon were at an all-time high for a wide receiver coming out of the draft, especially since he had been recognized as the nation's best wide receiver through the crowning of the Biletnikoff Award not once, but twice. His dazzling Oklahoma State career earned him a spot in the College Football Hall of Fame, so Jags fans were pretty excited about seeing their new recruit on the field. As a rookie though, it was a slow start for Blackmon. After just 10 weeks, he hadn't managed to top 67 yards in a game, and he only had 1 touchdown to show for it. However, any fans who were beginning to doubt him were suddenly drawn back in a 236-yard 1-touchdown performance against the Houston Texans. This is what they were expecting from the 5th overall pick, and for it to come against a division rival made it all the sweeter. Unfortunately though, there would be no repeat of that spectacular performance for the remainder of his career and that season. Following his 865-yard rookie season, 2012, Blackmon got off to the worst possible start in 2013 as he was suspended for 4 games for violating the league's substance abuse policy. He did manage to get back on track with a 136-yard performance in Week 5 and then a stunning 190-yard performance in Week 6, but another violation 2 weeks later would mark the beginning of the dramatic spiral that would end his career. Several other run-ins with the law and drugs tell the unfortunate story of a troubled star whose career was ultimately ruined by addiction.
With the 6th pick in the 2012 NFL Draft, Morris Claiborne, defensive back, LSU.
The LSU standout was highly regarded for his athleticism, coverage skills, and playmaking ability, making him a popular pick for America's team. There were certainly signs of promise for Claiborne's rookie season, in which he started 15 games, recorded 55 tackles, 8 pass breakups, and snagged 1 interception. This dude was proving that he could hold his own against some of the league's best wide receivers. But yet again, injuries began to take their toll. Various knee and hamstring injuries would result in him playing in just 14 games across his 2013 and 2014 seasons, before playing in just 18 games across his 2015 and 2016 seasons. With the team not willing to keep him beyond 2016, Claiborne opted to sign a 1-year deal with the New York Jets. He spent 2 years in New York where he managed to stay healthy and play some of his best football, finishing his time there with a 2018 season that saw him play 15 games and amass career highs with 57 tackles and 2 interceptions, including 1 return for a touchdown. Unfortunately, this wasn't enough to encourage the Jets to sign him to a longer deal, but there was a silver lining. With his release meant that he ended up signing with the Kansas City Chiefs in 2019 to play a minor role in their Super Bowl winning campaign.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Mark Barron, defensive back, Alabama.
Barron made an immediate impact on the team, recording 89 tackles, 1 interception, and 10 pass breakups. Another solid season followed in 2013, which is why it was such a surprise that he was traded to the St. Louis Rams halfway through his 2014 season, a move that he said made him feel disrespected. And surprisingly, it was with the Rams that Barron started a transition into the linebacker position, with the team thinking that they could utilize his speed and tackling prowess to become a key player at the heart of the defense. He recorded a career-high 116 tackles to go along with the 1 interception and 3 forced fumbles in 2015, validating the Rams' decision to change his position. Barron remained a key player in the Rams defense, helping them reach the Super Bowl in the 2018 season. Following that Super Bowl season though, Barron was released by the team and signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he was unable to convince them to sign him to a longer deal. It would be his last season in the NFL, bringing an end to a productive career that featured 710 combined tackles, 9 interceptions, and 5 forced fumbles.
The Miami Dolphins select Ryan Tannehill, quarterback, Texas A&M.
The quarterback out of Texas A&M had a solid start to life in the NFL, averaging 3,865 yards and 22 touchdowns per year across his first 4 seasons in the league. And don't get me wrong, the production from Tannehill was good over these 4 seasons, but it didn't really lead to any crazy success for the team otherwise. And unfortunately, during a 2016 season in which Miami was 8-5 after 13 games, Tannehill suffered a partially torn ACL injury, which he then fully tore during the preseason in 2017, forcing him to miss the entire season. After struggling on his return, Tannehill was traded to the Tennessee Titans, where it was presumed he would be a backup. However, it didn't take long for him to come in as a replacement for a struggling Marcus Mariota. And much to everyone's surprise, Tannehill led the Titans to the playoffs, throwing for 2,742 yards, 22 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. It resulted in a career-high passer rating of 117.5, earning him the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award. The team made it all the way to the AFC Championship game, where they finally lost to the eventual Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Tannehill unsurprisingly then signed a 4-year extension to secure his services as the starting quarterback for Tennessee, where he took the team to the playoffs 2 more times in the next 2 years. He since then has been replaced in Tennessee, as we all know, with Will Levis, but he's currently a free agent and could sign as a backup somewhere, even though he is 36 years old, but he still is in the league. So there may still be more to come from Tannehill, but for now, he sits on an impressive resume that features 34,881 passing yards, 216 touchdowns, and 115 interceptions. Along with those stats, he has also earned 1 Pro Bowl and 1 NFL Comeback Player of the Year award as well. Now, with possibly maybe the second best player out of this draft class, I don't know, is the 9th pick overall in 2012, which belonged to the Carolina Panthers, who selected Luke Kuechly, a linebacker out of Boston College. Kuechly was an instant hit for the Panthers, leading the league with 164 tackles and earning the Defensive Rookie of the Year award. He then went one better in 2013, recording 156 tackles, 2 sacks, and 4 interceptions, which was enough to make him the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year that year. Like, I mean, it was safe to say at the 9th overall pick, the Panthers had found a gem, with Kuechly's intelligence, tackling ability, and instinctive play making him one of the most dominant players in the league in his first 2 years. And I mean, he never let up, with Kuechly earning a Pro Bowl selection in every single year between 2013 and 2019, while also being selected as a first or second team All-Pro in every season during that stretch. Like, this dude was a star inside the Carolina Panthers defense, including in the incredible 2015 season that saw the team reach the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, there was no happy ending though, meaning Kuechly never got his ring he deserved. The tackling machine retired in 2020 at the age of just 28, citing the physical toll of the game and the desire to preserve his health. And although that the early retirement did again come as a huge surprise for Kuechly at the time, he is still one of the greatest and best linebackers to ever play at that position in NFL history, finishing with 1,092 tackles, 18 interceptions, 12.5 sacks, and 7 forced fumbles across his 8 years in the league. And following up the quality pick of Luke Kuechly was the selection of another defensive gem in the form of Stephon Gilmore, who became a Buffalo Bill with the 10th overall pick. The highly anticipated cornerback had a reputation for his physicality, intelligence, and coverage skills, and it didn't take long for him to show them. Gilmore was heavily involved as a rookie, starting all 16 games, recording 61 tackles, 1 interception, and 16 pass breakups. He enjoyed a successful time in Buffalo, which featured a Pro Bowl selection in 2016, but it was when he joined the New England Patriots that his career properly took off. He quickly became a cornerstone of the Patriots defense, earning first-team All-Pro honors in 2018 and 2019. The 2019 season in particular is what made him a New England Patriots legend. His 53 tackles, 6 interceptions, and 20 passes defended earned him the Defensive Player of the Year award, while also helping the Patriots win the Super Bowl. He was truly instrumental in helping the team get the job done with his effectiveness in shutting down some of the league's best receivers, earning him recognition as one of the best to ever play the position. And since then, Gilmore has tried to recreate the magic on several different teams that he's been a part of, but this season he has teamed up with Trevon Diggs and the Cowboys to see if that maybe he can be that 1-2 punch on the cornerback position with Diggs and see if he can help get the Cowboys to the Super Bowl in 2024. Up to now though, his impressive career features 561 tackles, 31 interceptions, and 140 pass breakups. But without a doubt, the 2012 NFL Draft was a real mix of talent, potential, and even some disappointing failures. The 2013 NFL Draft is widely regarded as one of the weakest draft classes in NFL history. But is that really fair? Today we'll look at everything from Hall of Famers to injury-riddled busts with more than a few total disappointments. And as we prepare to welcome in a new rookie class with this oncoming season, let's look back at one of the most unpredictable draft classes in NFL history as we revisit the 2013 NFL Draft.
2013 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Eric Fisher, tackle, Central Michigan.
The first overall pick of the 2013 NFL Draft was held by the Kansas City Chiefs, who selected Eric Fisher, an offensive tackle from Central Michigan. Having played his entire college career on the blind side, Fisher was bumped over to right tackle for Kansas City, and to say the least, he did struggle when he got moved over there. He ranked 55th in the league among right tackles by PFF, allowing 7 sacks and 35 pressures through 14 games. In his second season, he was moved back to left tackle and showed some improvement, but still allowed 7 sacks and 42 quarterback pressures. In 2015 and 2016, Fisher did show some improvements, but he never reached that true ceiling of what you hope to have with the number 1 overall pick. He did sign a 4-year extension with the Chiefs in 2016 and was a solid longtime starter, being a part of their successful 2019 Super Bowl run as well. Unfortunately, his career would end just a few years later though, largely because of a torn Achilles in the 2021 AFC Championship game. The team would go on to lose the Super Bowl against Tom Brady's Buccaneers, and he was released the following offseason, bouncing around the league for a little bit, but not signing with a team in 2024. He finished his career with 2 Pro Bowl selections and a Super Bowl ring.
In the 2013 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Luke Joeckel, tackle, Texas A&M.
At pick number 2, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected Luke Joeckel, an offensive lineman from Texas A&M. Entering the 2013 NFL Draft, Joeckel was widely considered to be the best tackle on the board and a candidate for the number 1 overall pick. So when Fisher went number 1 to the Chiefs, the Jaguars pounced on the selection. Like Fisher, Joeckel was bumped to right tackle to start his career, but returned to the left side when the Jaguars traded their left tackle away earlier in the season. Sadly though, in only his 5th career game, he suffered a season-ending ankle injury. In his sophomore season, he managed to stay healthy through 16 starts, but he also allowed 8 sacks and 44 quarterback pressures. This prompted the Jaguars to upgrade at the position, moving Joeckel to left guard after signing Kelvin Beachum from the Steelers. Through 4 games, Joeckel actually looked like he was setting in, not allowing a sack and only 7 pressures, being graded by PFF as a top run blocker too. Unfortunately though, he needed early knee surgery in that October of that season and never returned. As a free agent, he signed a 1-year deal with the Seattle Seahawks to play left guard, and despite starting 11 games, he wasn't brought back, announcing his retirement in October of 2018.
With the 3rd pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Dion Jordan, defensive end, Oregon.
At 3rd overall, the Dolphins selected Dion Jordan, a defensive end out of Oregon. And as a rookie, he did appear in all 16 games, but he just truly wasn't ready for the NFL yet. He was then suspended for a total of 6 games to start the 2014 season after 2 occasions of testing positive for performance-enhancing substances. And it got even worse the following year. He was then suspended for the entire 2015 season for another drug policy violation. Despite being conditionally reinstated before the 2016 season, Jordan didn't see the field at all and was cut the following offseason due to failing his physical. Jordan signed with the Seahawks in 2017, missing a lot of that season with a knee injury. He did flash with 4 sacks in just 5 games though, which encouraged the team to bring him back in 2018. Following yet another suspension-induced break, he signed with the 49ers practice squad in 2020. And oddly enough though, Dion's best season came in his final season too, when he appeared in 13 games for the Niners following injuries to Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas. He had 3 sacks and 17 total tackles before retiring in 2021. And while Jordan never truly delivered on being such a high draft pick at number 3, it truly is interesting to see what his career might have been if he didn't go through all of those suspensions.
With the 4th pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Lane Johnson, tackle, Oklahoma.
Now with the 4th overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles maybe took the only Hall of Famer from the entire first round of this draft. Lane Johnson, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma, needs little introduction to anyone who has been terrorized by the Eagles offense in recent years. Ranked as the 3rd best tackle in the 2013 draft, Johnson was a no-doubt pick for the Eagles at 4th overall. Just like the 2 prospects picked before him, Johnson was expected to develop as a right tackle, but he was much more equipped for it. His timeline was accelerated when Eagles starting right tackle Dennis Kelly needed season-ending back surgery before the 2013 season even began. And I mean, despite being thrown into the fire, Johnson started all 16 regular season games at right tackle and made his first playoff debut that same year. The crazy thing though is for as good as he's been throughout his career, he wasn't great as a rookie, allowing 11 sacks and 60 total pressures, but his run blocking was exceptional and earned him the starting job going forward. In his first 5 NFL seasons, Johnson faced 2 PED suspensions, but also made a Pro Bowl, started and won a Super Bowl, and signed the biggest right tackle contract in NFL history at the time. He was extended in 2019, becoming the highest paid offensive lineman in NFL history, regardless of position. And since signing that contract, Johnson has remained in the conversation as one of the best right tackles in football, as the Eagles have continuously fielded one of the best offensive lines on earth. Johnson has made 5 Pro Bowls and 2 All-Pro teams to go along with his Super Bowl ring. And at 34 years old, Johnson continues to build his first ballot Hall of Fame record. And he will definitely go down as one of probably only 2 good players from this first round of the 2013 draft.
With the 5th pick of the 2013 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Ezekiel Ansah, defensive end, BYU.
Now with the 5th pick in the draft, the Lions took a swing by taking Ezekiel Ansah, a defensive end from Ghana by the way of Brigham Young University. After showing out at the Senior Bowl in 2013, Ansah's draft stock went through the roof, and he went from an unknown commodity to a consensus first rounder. And look, the Lions may have reached for him a little bit, or a lot of it I guess I should say, but his arrow had been pointing up ever since he had just shown up in America. Ansah made a solid impact for the Lions after earning a starting spot early. He posted 8 sacks in his rookie season, laying the foundation for a solid career that featured multiple double-digit sack years down the line. He earned a permanent starting role in 2014 and never surrendered it, starting off the edge for the Lions every season until he left. He was franchise tagged by the Detroit Lions in 2018, but a combination of injury and just declining production kept them from signing him long-term. The Lions let Ziggy walk and he joined the Seahawks and 49ers in 2019 and 2020, but that was before retiring following a season-ending bicep injury in 2020.
With the 6th pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Barkevious Mingo, defensive end, LSU.
The Cleveland Browns selected Barkevious Mingo out of LSU with the 6th overall pick. Having played inside linebacker during his college career, Mingo was moved to outside by the Browns after he was signed. Despite the Browns' failures in 2013, Mingo left his rookie season with 5 sacks, 4 pass breakups, and 42 tackles in 15 games. Unfortunately though, he really never became effective outside of his rookie season. Like, don't get me wrong, he still made plays, matching his tackle numbers in 2014 and catching his only career interception in 2015, but he was traded out of Cleveland for a 5th round pick during the 2016 preseason. And the crazy part about all of this is that he actually was a part of that Patriots Super Bowl team in 2017, but that success just wasn't enough to grant him like an extension of any sort, so he's just kind of become a journeyman since. And now in his final 4 years of his career, Mingo would sign with the Colts, Seahawks, and Bears, and even Falcons. He was also traded by the Seahawks in the Jadeveon Clowney trade to the Texans. And I mean, Mingo saw lots of regular season and playoff action, but he never managed to stand out enough to maintain a roster spot. Unfortunately, Mingo's career came to an abrupt end when he was arrested and released by the Falcons. Those charges were eventually dismissed, but he hasn't appeared on an NFL roster since. The Cardinals were the 7th overall pick, where they selected guard Jonathan Cooper. The North Carolina graduate showed why he was such a high-value target early in his career, being named the Cards' left guard before even training camp started. Unfortunately though, injuries just kind of kept Cooper from really reaching his high draft status, as he broke his left fibula in a preseason game, missing his entire rookie season. He was projected to be the starter in 2014, but then just kept getting injured and having knee and foot injuries, which allowed him never to have that starting spot. Cooper managed to start 10 games at right guard in 2015, but he missed more time with another knee injury and was traded to the Patriots in exchange for Chandler Jones. And honestly, for the rest of his career, he was just really playing as a stopgap or just had a bunch of injuries and never even saw the field. He was cut from the Patriots and was a temporary guard for the Cleveland Browns and sprained his MCL with the Cowboys. His talent earned him other chances, but repeated surgery and recoveries have taken their toll on his body, and he failed to ever hold a roster spot, bouncing between the 49ers, Washington, and the Raiders before retiring.
With the 8th pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, the St. Louis Rams select Tavon Austin, wide receiver, West Virginia.
Now with the 8th overall pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, one of the most iconic college football players of all time was selected in Tavon Austin from West Virginia. And I mean, look, in his rookie season, he had flashes of why he was selected with the 8th overall pick, highlighted by a game in which he had 2 catches for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also working as a kick and punt returner. He did remain a solid returner throughout his entire career, but I mean, honestly, his receiving end never really caught up to how good he was as a returner and just was more of like a gadget guy in my book. His career highs were set in 2016 when he had 58 receptions for just 509 yards. He always worked as a utility man and a special teamer, but his ceiling wasn't nearly as high as what it looked like at West Virginia. In 2016, Austin signed a large extension with the Rams, but after his production completely plummeted in 2017, he agreed to avoid most of it and was traded to the Cowboys. His 2018, 19, and 20 season were completely plagued by injuries, and he was a traveling receiver for the rest of his career before he retired in 2022.
With the 9th pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Dee Milliner, defensive back, Alabama.
Now at 9th overall, the New York Jets took their shot at the first defensive back off the board, drafting cornerback Dee Milliner out of Alabama. After joining the Jets, Dee struggled, being benched multiple times early on before settling in and nabbing 3 interceptions in his final 2 games. And I mean, despite this rocky start to his career in 2014, he actually was projected to be the starting cornerback for the Jets. And I mean, the kid was so confident that in an offseason statement, he said that he was going to be the best cornerback in the league. As crazy as that was though, he was completely unable to prove his point though, after an ankle sprain pushed back his return and a torn Achilles kept him just 3 games in his sophomore season. Unfortunately, the rest of Milner's career was more of the same, as in 2015 he needed wrist surgery and did not appear outside of a limited special teams role, and in 2016 he was waived and released from the Jets, never to be picked up by another team. And I mean, due to the early struggles, it's hard to say really of anything besides that Dee Milliner was probably a bust because of all these injuries that he faced, and because of that he really was never able to really pick himself back up and really revive his career. He was involved in a bar fight following his release from New York and hasn't even been able to be worked out by another team as far as I can tell. So if you're looking for a certified bust of this draft, look no further than Dee Milliner.
With the 10th pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Chance Warmack, guard, Alabama. How about that?
Rounding out the top 10, we have Chance Warmack, the guard from Alabama who was drafted by the Tennessee Titans. Warmack started all 16 games in his rookie year before being moved to right guard. His availability remained constant as he didn't miss a game for 3 straight years until a hand injury took him away for most of the 2016 season. The Titans decided not to retain their anchor of a left guard and let him walk in free agency, where he signed with the Eagles before the 2017 season. Along with fellow 2013 draftee, Warmack was part of the 2018 Eagles Super Bowl win, and although Warmack did so as a backup and a special teamer, he still was a part of that team. He remained at backup for another season in Philly, then took off 2 years from football, and when he returned following the COVID-19 pandemic, the league had moved far away from him and Warmack failed to ever make another NFL roster. And I think it's safe to say that Chance Warmack is one of the biggest disappointments of the 2013 draft, even if he wasn't anywhere near the biggest bust. He was one of the best prospects in the entire draft, and even though he played 3 great years for the Titans, they kicked him to the curb after 1 injury. Like, I mean, maybe there was just another underlying reason of why they cut him besides just that injury, but I mean, he was just so mediocre everywhere else he went. And honestly, I kind of blame the Titans for squandering all that talent that just fell into their lap at the 10th overall pick. And really considering how long top athletes keep their careers, it's really disappointing for me to see literally 1 player on the top 10 still actively playing. Like, I mean, if you ask me truly, I think that the 2013 draft has to be one of the worst draft classes in probably the past 10 to 20 years. Like, the only real players of note are Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, and Lane Johnson. Other guys like Zach Ertz, Darius Slay, and Geno Smith have carved out nice careers, but we also saw plenty of other burnouts such as Eddie Lacy and quarterback EJ Manuel. Luckily though, NFL drafts and just honestly the development of prospects has gotten so much better, so I really doubt that we're ever going to see a draft class as bad as 2013 was, especially in that top 10 that we went over today. Almost every NFL draft is given a tagline or legacy based on its top prospects or a particular position group. 2021 had the 5 quarterbacks in the first round, 2024 had the most offensive players ever selected in the first round, and the 2014 draft is considered to have hosted one of the greatest wide receiver classes in NFL history. But what about the rest of that class? Were they nearly as legendary? And which receivers actually were considered top of the class? Today, we re-examine the top 10 picks of the 2014 NFL Draft.
With the first pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Jadeveon Clowney, defensive end, South Carolina.
Wow. Michigan at the 41. What a hit! Ball's free on the ground. South Carolina deserves to have it, and they do.
Clowney played solid football through his first 5 years with the Texans, including back-to-back 9-sack seasons and 3 consecutive Pro Bowl selections, but it wasn't enough to earn him an extension. Instead, Houston franchise tagged the edge rusher and traded him to the Seattle Seahawks for a minimum return. An underwhelming year in Seattle was followed by an injury-plagued year in Tennessee before his luck finally turned around in back-to-back seasons on mercenary deals with the Cleveland Browns. However, after totaling 65 tackles and 11 sacks sacks, Clowney complained about the way he was being used in 2022 and was set free yet again. In 2023 though, Clowney showed his top pick talent on a one-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens, where he played in all 19 of their games, tying his career high of 9.5 sacks while being a veteran presence on the best scoring defense of 2023. His efforts were rewarded this offseason with the first multi-year contract he signed since his rookie deal, getting 2 years and $20 million with the Panthers and returning to the Carolinas where he grew up. Clowney may not be the flashiest #1 overall pick in history, but he has an underrated career and seems to have plenty left in the tank.
Second pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the St. Louis Rams select Greg Robinson, tackle, Auburn.
Early on in his career, Robinson was criticized for issues with his weight and his discipline, becoming a heavily penalized player by his third professional season. When the Rams signed Andrew Whitworth though, he was moved to offensive guard, although he was soon bumped out to right tackle instead. And after 3 serviceable but not really excellent seasons, the Rams decided to get some return before letting Robinson walk and traded him to the Detroit Lions for a late round pick. He started 6 games for the Lions at left tackle, but was waived after suffering a frustrating injury. Robinson got another chance with the Cleveland Browns in 2018, signing a 1-year deal to be a backup swing tackle. He took over from rookie Desmond Harrison in Week 9 of 2018 and maintained the spot, and was rewarded with another 1-year deal before the 2019 season, being named the starter. Robinson was solid in 2019 with the Browns, and his arrows seemed to be pointing up, but then he made choices that ended his NFL career completely prematurely. In the 2019-2020 offseason, Robinson was arrested with almost 160 pounds of marijuana on him near the Mexican border.
Barr, depending on the quality of the product, he was driving around with anywhere between 300 grand and 750 gur in street value pot. Now that seems like a lot of money, right? Until you remember that Greg Robinson's salary with the Browns last season was $5.5 million before roster bonuses. In other words, this guy's driving around with roughly a game check of Kron. And for that, he is now facing the possibility of 20 years in prison.
And although he was only sentenced to 5 years probation, the court case and Robinson's less than stellar output so far in his career made him more trouble than he was worth. And I mean, there are absolutely no really ways around it that he is our first bust of the 2014 draft class.
With the third pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Blake Bortles, quarterback, Central Florida.
At 6'5" and boasting stellar passing stats in college, Bortles was far and away the best quarterback prospect in the 2014 draft. And as the player chosen to be the Jags franchise quarterback, he would need to play up to that. He was made the starter early in his rookie year and would go on to break multiple rookie records with his accuracy and running ability. However, he took 55 sacks in his 14 rookie games and had to prove development going forward. Despite solid passing numbers, Bortles failed to elevate the Jaguars early in his career and led the NFL in sacks and interceptions multiple times. This all changed late in the 2017 season though, as Bortles went on a still legendary tear, posting 3 games in a 4-week stretch with a passer rating over 100, more than 300 passing yards, and totaling 8 touchdowns without an interception. Behind this streak from their quarterback, the Jaguars won their division for the first time since the AFC South was created with a 10-7 record. Once in the playoffs, Bortles continued his Linsanity-like run, rushing for 88 yards in a playoff win over the Bills and upsetting the Steelers in the divisional round in a 45-42 shootout. In the 2017 AFC Championship game though, the magic wore off and the Jaguars blew a 10-point lead to the Patriots. But all in all, this run honestly gave him the chance to get that second contract, and although it was a mid-level contract that he did get a second contract with the Jaguars because of that Linsanity-like run. And honestly, the Jaguars were really banking on hoping to see that magic kind of kick in again, but honestly, it just never came about. In the middle of the 2018 season, he would be benched only to be released by the team in the following offseason. Since then, Bortles has bounced around teams without ever being able to refine the magic. And now with the 4th pick, the Buffalo Bills selected the electric Sammy Watkins out of Clemson. As a true freshman wide receiver, Watkins had gone for over 1,200 yards and had been a constant producer in college. The Bills traded up to get the speedster, needing to bolster a roster around quarterback EJ Manuel. Watkins fit the system and contributed quickly, catching around 2,000 yards through his first 2 seasons. Before his 3rd season, however, though, that's when injuries really started to become a big issue. With a broken bone in his foot causing Watkins to miss several months of football, he was traded in the following offseason to the Los Angeles Rams, where he struggled to pick up and prove his worth. The Kansas City Chiefs, though, were still willing to bet on Watkins' talent and signed him to a 3-year deal in 2018, during which he was a primary weapon for young superstar Patrick Mahomes. Here he finally started to show glimpses of the talent that made him a top pick, going for over 100 yards in the 2019 AFC Championship game and 98 more in the Super Bowl win. After another down year in 2020, though, Watkins was allowed to walk, and he hasn't had another healthy season since. Injuries hampered his time in Baltimore and Green Bay, and while he hasn't formally retired, he hasn't been on an NFL roster since 2022.
The 5th pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Oakland Raiders select Khalil Mack, linebacker, Buffalo.
An excellent senior season boosted Mack's draft stock and made him the highest drafted player from his college in history. Through his first 4 seasons in Oakland, Mack recorded more than 40 sacks and 68 tackles for loss, making 3 straight Pro Bowls and making back-to-back All-Pro first teams, as well as winning the 2016 Defensive Player of the Year award. As a pure edge rusher in the Raiders scheme, he flourished. But when he demanded a contract worthy of his talent, the Raiders traded him to the Chicago Bears for a first-rounder and change. Immediately, the Bears made Mack the highest paid defensive player in NFL history at the time, locking him in for 6 years. After a frustrating injury in 2021, Mack was traded to the LA Chargers, who were hoping he could help them secure playoff action. While the overall team effort fell behind those ambitions, 8 sacks and another Pro Bowl for Mack arrived in 2022, followed by a dominant 2023 campaign in which he posted a career-high 17 sacks. Inspired by the new regime captained by Jim Harbaugh, Mack has agreed to restructure his deal that will keep him in LA for at least 1 more year. And now at pick 6, the Atlanta Falcons would take Jake Matthews, an offensive tackle out of Texas A&M. And I mean, honestly, I get it. This name really doesn't jump off the draft boards like other names on this list, but I mean, there's honestly an argument to be made that Jake Matthews is one of the best players to come out of the 2014 NFL Draft. He's a tough physical blocker and established himself as the Falcons' starting left tackle before his first season and played most of his rookie year on a bad ankle while still blocking efficiently. And as I'm making this video right now, he's only missed 1 game in his career, and it was because of that bad ankle. Besides that, he's never missed another game. Despite only making 1 Pro Bowl, Matthews has been the franchise left tackle the Falcons needed and earned multiple contracts as such, including a 5-year $75 million contract in 2018 and a 3-year extension in 2022. In his more than 11,000 NFL snaps, Matthews has committed only 54 penalties, and though he may never be considered among the greatest left tackles in history, Jake Matthews has been an anchor piece for Atlanta through his entire decade-long career.
The 7th pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Mike Evans, wide receiver, Texas A&M.
And now, of all the players covered today, Mike Evans probably needs the least introduction possible. Not only has he never played anywhere but Tampa Bay since being drafted, but he has also consistently been one of the best wide receivers on the planet. And he is still somehow one of football's most underrated players. He kicked things off with just over 1,000 yards receiving in his rookie year before announcing himself in just 14 starts with a 1,200-yard season in 2015. In his 10 seasons in the league, Evans has established himself as extremely reliable and effective regardless of who lines up under center, going for more than 1,000 yards every single year. He has broken NFL records for the youngest player to hit every milestone he's reached, and his 1,000-yard season streak also appears completely untouchable. On top of that, he has only committed 4 career fumbles. His ability to play through injuries has been a factor in this Hall of Fame level production, but the questionable quarterbacking the Bucs had pre-Brady only emphasizes his quality. And I mean, speaking of Brady, Evans was completely instrumental in that 2021 2021 run they had, when he made his first postseason appearances, catching an extra 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. For his efforts, he earned a Super Bowl ring along with his 4th career Pro Bowl nod. And when Baker Mayfield was named the Bucs starter in 2023, the end seemed to be near in sight, only for Evans to then erupt yet again, making his 5th Pro Bowl with more than 1,200 receiving yards and tying the league lead in receiving touchdowns at 13. He signed another deal to stay with the Bucs going forward, and after several seasons free from a nagging injury, there's no reason why Mike Evans won't continue to flourish. And now at 8th overall, the Cleveland Browns selected cornerback Justin Gilbert, an Oklahoma State cornerback coming off of an All-American in a first-team All-Big 12 season. Gilbert ran a 4.35 40-yard dash and was considered DB1 in 2014 by most people, but despite his high draft stock, Gilbert failed to stack up. After 2 seasons in Cleveland, he had already missed several games due to injury and only had 1 interception to his name, which came at a loss anyway. Gilbert was then traded to the Steelers in 2016 for just absolutely breadcrumbs after what he had been drafted for. But I mean, even with Mike Tomlin, he couldn't even get any potential out of this kid either. After just 12 games as a bench corner for Pittsburgh, he was released by the Steelers and sought a new landing spot. The NFL had other plans, however, as Gilbert was suspended for a year as a free agent for violating the league's rules on substance abuse. Gilbert never appeared on an NFL team after the suspension, but around 6 years later, he made his return to football and now plays with the Sioux City Bandits of the Arena Football League.
With the 9th pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Anthony Barr, linebacker, UCLA.
Anthony Barr, an outside linebacker from UCLA, played 4 college football seasons before competing with Khalil Mack for the crown of top linebacker in the class. At 6'5" and running a 4.4 40, Barr has been an electric athlete while remaining decently productive as well. He set his career high for solo tackles and sacks in his rookie year, but has had numbers circling those zones ever since. As a very efficient coverage and run-stopping linebacker, Barr has only amassed 18.5 sacks in his career, but has totaled over 550 total tackles. And I mean, even on his rookie deal, Barr made 4 straight consecutive Pro Bowls too, despite many people saying he was slacking or not even living up to the number 9 overall pick that he was taken at. Before the 2019 season, Barr, a free agent, nearly left the Vikings for the Jets, but was brought back on a 5-year contract worth $67 million. He missed most of the 2020 season with a torn pec, but returned on a reworked deal in 2021. Barr was injury-riddled once again, making this the start of his decline. He spent 2022 as a depth piece for the Cowboys before returning to Minnesota for 4 games in 2023. And it might be too soon to say if Barr is going to make his retirement official now, but it seems like his body has now retired after 6 years of honestly great defensive football. Rounding out the top 10 though, we have Eric Ebron selected by the Detroit Lions at number 10 overall, who is a tight end out of North Carolina. After 3 years of college, Ebron was the consensus top tight end on a board completely covered with a lot of wide receiver talent. So he was a natural fit for a Detroit team looking to boost Matthew Stafford's weapons cabinet of Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate. And although Ebron certainly did his job and is clearly the top tight end from this draft, he definitely didn't live up to the status of a top 10 pick. Ebron was solid as a rookie, but battled injuries in his 2nd and 3rd seasons, failing to establish himself as a top weapon in the Lions system. Despite having exercised the 5th option on his deal, the Lions opted to waive Ebron in 2018 and signed in Indianapolis with Andrew Luck. And I mean, in that season, everything seemed to click for the tight end, with a career high in receiving yards at 750 and more than doubling his career high in touchdowns, ending the season with 13 and making his first Pro Bowl. Like, I mean, the guy was finally starting to develop, but yet again, after earning another spot, injuries completely derailed his career. In 2020, Ebron signed another 2-year deal, this time with the Steelers. But even with some improvement and a clean bill of health, he was quickly replaced by Pat Freiermuth in 2021. Since his contract has expired, Ebron has been a free agent with no team showing much interest in the one-time Pro Bowler. But now, after vast disappointment in the 2013 NFL Draft that we just went over in the video prior, the league's offseason needed a win, and the top picks of the 2014 draft had it all. From first ballot Hall of Famers to first ballot just complete busts, the draft was absolutely loaded. The rest of the first round also saw names like Odell Beckham Jr., Brandon Cooks, and Aaron Donald also get selected, with other highlights like Devontae Adams and Derek Carr to go with the lowlights of Johnny Manziel. All in all though, the 2014 draft was certainly a class stocked with wide receiver talent, but the other players are to not be overlooked. The NFL Draft always offers a heavy dose of hype, promise, and plenty of disappointment, and 2015 was no different. This particular batch features a mix of names who are still playing at a high level now, some who are just about clinging on to their NFL careers, and some that you will have downright forgotten about. From a player who got caught stealing,
right? I mean, everybody...
Stone crabs?
Yeah, whatever that whole theft thing was at Publix or whatever it might have been. I don't know the whole... I just know it happened. That's like the elephant in the room for you. I mean, everyone's going to want to know what happened.
To quite possibly one of the biggest busts of all time, this is what happened to the 2015 draft class and where they are now. Now with the first overall pick, we have one of the most polarizing quarterbacks of all time, and personally, one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time too.
Now have surveillance video showing Heisman Trophy winner Jameis Winston casually walking out of a grocery store with crab legs. He walks out with about $32 worth of crab legs and crawfish without paying. Winston later admitted to walking out of the store without paying and has already served several hours of community service. In the video, you also see Winston following a security guard out of the store.
I just think we were prepared. You know, one thing my trainer, he told me, he said, what did he say? He just told us to be prepared.
Arriving with a Heisman Trophy and a national championship from his time at Florida State, Winston got off to a good start by throwing for 4,042 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions, also collecting 213 more yards and another 6 touchdowns on the ground. The strong-armed, competitive quarterback, the interception numbers also joined the passing yards and ticking up too. Eventually, this culminated into one of the most wild 2019 seasons we've seen, in which he passed for 5,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 30 interceptions. Still sits at 7th on the all-time leaderboard for most drive in 2021 when he got off to a 5-2 start.
It's your new quarterback, Jameis Winston.
Quarterback, Oregon.
13 record that was good enough for a second consecutive last place finish in the division. And I mean, in all fairness to Mariota, he ended up missing 4 games that season with injury. But I mean, he did show some dual threat ability, as he did rush for 252 yards and I believe it was like 6 touchdowns that season. But I mean, honestly, the upside never quite matched his overall selection of being at number 2. The team's best result came in 2017 when the Tennessee Titans made it all the way to the divisional round of the playoffs, where they then lost to the New England Patriots. During that one playoff season during Mariota's tenure, he completed 62% of his passes for 3,232 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions, adding 312 yards and 5 touchdowns as a rusher. And to put it this way, it really wasn't Mariota who propelled them to that playoff appearance that year. He did, however, provide everybody with this amazing moment, catching his own deflected pass for a touchdown in the wildcard round against Kansas City, which not many people can say. Unfortunately, Mariota's career was marred by inconsistent play and injuries. He struggled with shoulder injuries, elbow issues, and a broken fibula throughout his time in Tennessee. By 2019, he had been replaced by Ryan Tannehill, and he resorted to backup duties for a bit. First in Tennessee, then in Las Vegas, before finally getting another starting opportunity in Atlanta. Failing to set the world on fire there, he then spent a season in Philadelphia in 2023, before settling for his next backup role in Washington this year.
With the 3rd pick in the 2015 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Dante Fowler Jr., defensive end, Florida.
Unfortunately, it was a disastrous start to life in the NFL for Fowler, who tore his ACL and missed his entire rookie season. When he finally could take the field in 2016 as a sophomore, Fowler turned in a solid but not spectacular season, recording 32 tackles and 4 sacks. He managed to step up things in 2017 when he contributed to a formidable Jaguars defense that helped propel the team all the way to the AFC Championship game, where they lost to the New England Patriots. Fowler's tackle numbers dipped to 21, but he did log 8 sacks and 2 forced fumbles, one of which he returned for a touchdown. Unfortunately though, he was really unable to convince the Jaguars with his stats that he was worth keeping around, so they ended up letting him go. While flashing at times, Fowler had underperformed in relation to his high draft selection, and he was traded to the LA Rams halfway through the 2018 season. While his production did peak in his second season with the Rams to the tune of a career-best 58 tackles, he never managed to capitalize on the momentum, going on to produce a couple of underwhelming stints in both Atlanta and Dallas. The former 3rd overall pick has signed with the Commanders for the 2024 season, but he is essentially just a depth piece now. And unfortunately, he really never came close to delivering on that status of being picked at 3rd overall. And I mean, it really begs the question you have to wonder, if he didn't get injured in his rookie season, what could have been of his career?
With the 4th pick in the 2015 NFL Draft, the Oakland Raiders select Amari Cooper, wide receiver, Alabama.
Amari Cooper became an Oakland Raider and quickly proved his quality by collecting 1,070 yards and 6 touchdowns as a rookie, which was enough to earn him his first Pro Bowl selection. The former Biletnikoff winner then followed up with another strong season as a sophomore, posting 1,153 yards and 5 touchdowns to collect his 2nd consecutive Pro Bowl appearance to open his career. And despite a down year in 2017, the Dallas Cowboys were tempted by Cooper's size and route running ability, pulling the trigger on a trade midway through the 2018 season.
Oakland Raiders will be willing to trade almost anyone on the roster, and they just traded a huge piece. Amari Cooper, their 1st-round pick, star receiver, is headed to the Dallas Cowboys in exchange for a 1st-round pick. Now,
once again, Cooper made an instant impact, posting 725 yards and 6 touchdowns in just the 9 games that remained that year. And in doing so, he helped the team reach the playoffs and won his 3rd Pro Bowl. His 4th Pro Bowl selection then arrived 1 year later as Cooper posted new career highs in his first full season with the Cowboys, where he had 1,189 yards and 8 touchdowns, and continued a trend of consistently strong performances from Cooper. He was now a reliable player that could move the chains and make big plays when needed.
Prescott goes to the end zone. Pass is caught. Cooper, touchdown.
It was a surprise, therefore, that Cooper was traded to the Cleveland Browns for just a 5th-round pick prior to the 2022 season. In a new city once again, Cooper has kept up the good performances, logging 2 1,000-yard seasons, including a 1,250-yard effort in 2023 that marked a new career high and also welcomed his 5th Pro Bowl honor. Cooper's exactly what you want from an outside receiver, collecting over 9,000 yards and 60 touchdowns from his 9 years in the league so far. Now at pick number 5, the Washington Commanders selected Brandon Sheriff to bolster their offensive line. Having just won the Outland Trophy as the nation's best interior lineman, Sheriff came with high expectations and he delivered. As a rookie, he started all 16 games and played a crucial role in helping the team win the division, improving from last place the year before. His first Pro Bowl appearance arrived in 2016, kickstarting a spell of quality, power, and consistency that made him one of the most respectable guards in the NFL. Between 2016 and 2021, he went to the Pro Bowl every season apart from in 2018, while also collecting first-team All-Pro honors in 2020. Whether it was as a pass blocker for his quarterback or a run blocker for the team's running back, Sheriff was elite, and the result was a lucrative contract with the Jaguars in 2022, where he still plays. Washington got their money's worth with the 5th overall selection, with Brandon Sheriff going down as a definitive hit near the top of the 2015 NFL Draft. Now with the 6th overall pick, the New York Jets addressed their defensive line with the addition of Leonard Williams. The large defensive end immediately made his presence felt, starting 15 games in which he recorded 63 tackles, 3 sacks, and 7 tackles for loss. He was a solid all-around performer for New York, particularly effective in the run game and winning a spot on the all-rookie team for his efforts. Williams took his play up a notch in 2016, improving to 68 tackles, 7 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, making himself a key figure in the heart of the Jets' defensive unit and earning a Pro Bowl selection as well. Unfortunately, though, he really could have little impact in really turning around New York's just miserable performances year after year, and a lack of any further development from Williams kind of just capped him as like a good player and not like a great player at his position. He continued to contribute as both a pass rusher and a run defender, but has not managed to win another Pro Bowl nomination or other accolades. His time in a Jets uniform came to an end in 2019 when he moved across the city to don the blue of the New York Giants. As a Giant, Williams did produce arguably his best season yet before setting a career high in tackles in 2021 with 81. Halfway through the 2023 season, Williams was traded to Seattle, marking the first time in his 9-year pro career that he would be playing football outside of New York. He's hoping he can get back to his best in his first full season as a Seahawk in 2024. Now, with the 7th overall pick, we have quite possibly one of the biggest busts of all time, especially at the wide receiver position, which was the 2nd wide receiver taken off the board in this year's draft, with the Chicago Bears selecting Kevin White. White was a playmaking machine with an impressive size and speed combination, but his career was marred by endless injuries. And I mean, it's not entirely his fault, and really a heartbreaking story for a young man who had such a bright future in the NFL. But as I said earlier, the reality of it is that Kevin White is one of the biggest busts in the NFL draft era. White could only muster up 397 yards across his entire career. Yes, his entire career. His rookie season was lost because of a stress fracture in his shin before a fractured fibula and a high ankle sprain resulted in him playing just 4 games in 2016. Across those 4 games, White caught 19 passes for 187 yards, making up the majority of his career production. 1 year later, a fractured shoulder blade in the 2017 season opener gave him his 3rd season-ending injury in as many years. Having played just 5 games across his first 3 seasons, it was clear that White was never going to be able to develop into an NFL receiver and deliver on his top 10 selection. He did manage to play in 9 games in 2018, but the result was just 92 yards and no touchdowns. The Bears, unsurprisingly, decided not to pick up his 5th-year option, resulting in a 2-year hiatus in which he tried and failed to catch on a few other teams. And I mean, he eventually did catch on with the Saints, who, for some godforsaken reason, tried to give this guy a chance, but his 2 seasons there just produced 3 receptions for 112 yards. No touchdowns and just 397 yards render Kevin White our biggest bust in 2015. Now, the Falcons owned the 8th overall pick in the 2015 draft, which they used on Vic Beasley, a defensive end out of Clemson. Promising signs came from Beasley's rookie season, in which he recorded 4 sacks and 2 forced fumbles, but it was his 2016 season that really got everybody excited. I mean, as a sophomore, Vic Beasley went absolutely berserk, logging a career-high 15.5 sacks, 29 tackles, and a league-leading 6 forced fumbles, one of which he returned for a touchdown. He was a one-man wrecking crew coming off the edge, earning himself a Pro Bowl selection and a first-team All-Pro. His speed and explosiveness could rarely be stopped, and he was super influential in helping the Falcons reach the Super Bowl that year. Unfortunately, that was the same year of 28-3, but that does make him the 3rd player on this list to suffer playoff heartbreak at the hands of Tom Brady's Patriots. And I mean, look, at this point and up to this point in Beasley's career, the Falcons had thought that they drafted the next defensive player of the year. Like, they were so sure that this kid was legit and he was going to be good. But that 2016 season would never be repeated by Beasley. In fact, he would actually start to decline. He posted just 5 sacks in each of his next 2 seasons. He improved to register 8 sacks in 2019, but it wasn't enough to convince the Falcons to keep him in Atlanta, resulting in him signing a 1-year deal in Tennessee. After a miserable start to the 2020 campaign, the Titans opted to cut Beasley mid-season, and he briefly signed with the Raiders, but was unable to make any good plays on tape there either. So as it stands right now, Beasley hasn't played in the NFL since, and quite the fall from grace after an exceptional sophomore campaign in 2016. Eric Flowers was the 9th overall pick, heading to the Giants to take on the left tackle role. He struggled as a rookie, conceding 5 sacks, 47 hurries, and 10 penalties, which is not good, and with people often criticizing his technique too. His troubles continued throughout the next 3 seasons, giving up 169 pressures, which was the most by any offensive tackle. He was even accused by former teammate and NFL analyst Jeff Schwartz of quitting on the team. After he was benched in the 2018 season, the Giants decided to cut their losses and release Flowers. From then onwards, Flowers has become somewhat of a journeyman, playing for Jacksonville, Washington, Miami, and then Washington again, and he's even moved to the guard position and showed steady signs of improvement, but not enough to convince a team to keep him for any longer than a year.
With the 10th pick in the 2015 NFL Draft, the St. Louis Rams select Todd Gurley, running back, Georgia.
Todd Gurley was a highly respected running back with impressive speed, power, and versatility. He hit the ground running, earning the Offensive Rookie of the Year award because of an 1,100-yard season accompanied by 10 touchdowns. It was an incredible effort, made even more impressive by the fact that he missed the first 2 games of the season as he recovered from an ACL tear suffered in college. A tricky year in 2016 set the alarm bells ringing for Rams fans, but their concerns were quickly banished as Gurley exploded into form in 2017 under new head coach Sean McVay. Gurley was the focal point of the offense in 2017, rushing for 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns on the ground, while also collecting 788 yards and 6 more touchdowns through the air. He was an absolute machine, amassing a total of 2,093 yards and a league-leading 19 touchdowns, which was enough for him to win the prestigious Offensive Player of the Year award and his first-team All-Pro selection. His second first-team All-Pro selection arrived 1 year later as Gurley logged another impressive season that featured 1,200 rushing yards and a league-leading 17 touchdowns on the ground, to go along with 580 more yards and 4 touchdowns through the air. During that 2-year stretch, Gurley was one of the most feared offensive playmakers in the NFL, leading the Rams to the playoffs in 2017 and to a heartbreaking Super Bowl loss in 2018. And unfortunately, the later stages of that 2018 season are when we started to see some, concerns about Gurley's knee. And from that point onwards, he really was never the same player. His production dipped below 4 yards per carry in 2019 and 2020, with the lingering knee issues resulting in an early end to what was a short but remarkable career. All in all though, it's a pretty underwhelming top 10 with most players failing to come good on their hype, but Amari Cooper and Brandon Sheriff did deliver at a high level for their teams, but it will be a class that is remembered mostly for an underwhelming quarterback play, of which Mariota and Winston were just really mediocre, and busts like Kevin White. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think of this class and any of the guys that were listed on here. Personally, for me, Jameis still will be one of my favorite players ever. I think just his antics of all time. The dude is a legend for what he's done. Just hilarious. Everything he does is hilarious. But again, let me know down in the comment section below, what draft class should we do next, or should we start to do some other stuff